Thank you, Severin and Michael. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gary Hart. I'm the worship associate for you today. I'll open today with a poem by Laura Thompson called Across the Distance. Across the distance, the light from within me shines, sending love to all. Across the distance, your light is fuel that warms me and helps to keep my own light burning. Together, we keep the flame of community burning bright. And now for your favorite part, we have announcements. People coming in later trying to miss the announcements, but I'm waiting for them. An important one is Val Corinzapak. I don't know how many of you know Val. She's a member here. She broke her leg fairly badly, and she needs some help with meals. So there is a sign-up sheet. You can see Gabby to bring her some meals. I think she wants vegetarian and soups, and you can talk to Gabby. If you can manage to take a meal or two to Val Corinzapak, that would be wonderful. Thank you for that. See Gabby for the information. Dinners with UUs are back. If you've been here long enough, you remember dinners with UUs. We used to love that stuff. Well, we're going to do it again. The first one's on Saturday, October 22nd. See Tracy Blinder for information, or Judy Carter. You can sign up. Minister Chloe is providing an introduction to giving reflections and sermons at PUC for those of you who want to get up here and be famous or infamous. She will discuss the components of a worship service, how to write spiritually meaningful reflection. This is a two-part workshop on Sunday, October 2nd and October 9th from 12 to 1:30. They'll meet in the library. Come join us. And come help us make sandwiches for Community's Child on Monday at 1 o'clock. We make a bunch of sandwiches, bologna and cheese, or meat and cheese, and we make peanut butter and jelly. It's all fun. And there's a town hall today in the patio right after service. Now we'll light our chalice. As we light our chalice, I'll say these words from Erica Hewitt. What our religious ancestors proclaimed in 1648 is still true today. The communion of churches is exercised by way of mutual care and taking thought for one another's welfare. In case of need, to minister relief and succor to one another. We, your family in faith, offer you care and succor. We commit to take thought of your welfare as a congregation. We call upon you for the same.
Good morning, all. My name is Chloe Briede, and I'm the interim minister here at PUC. And we open this morning with words from the Reverend Kristen Schmidt, and it's in honor of the Jewish New Year. The Jewish New Year commemorates the creation of the world, the bringing forth of order where once there was only chaos, the birth of the building blocks of life. As Jews within and beyond these walls begin to celebrate Rosh Hashanah tonight, let us all celebrate. Let us marvel. Let us be awestruck. For the same force that brought our planet into being, the same force that evolved tiny atoms and molecules and DNA into intelligent life, the same power that transforms summer into autumn and autumn into winter, that same power is still at work in the universe and in us, always bringing about new seasons, new creations, new possibilities. Breath of life, breathe in us, with us, through us this day. As we gather, one in community, one in commitment to truth, love, and justice, open our minds and hearts to the new that's always being created. Come, my friends, let us celebrate, let us marvel, let us be filled with awe. Come, let us worship together this day. Our opening hymn this morning is Gather the Spirit. And you're invited to rise as you're willing and able for Gather the Spirit.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of each hour. Our trials in this life appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured in love and conscience refined. Body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, grown by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring, summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in strength, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
And now Jewel is going to offer our story for all ages.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, you guys. Join me, children. Hi, everybody. Oh, so a little bit before we get to our story, I just want to say thank you for filling out your surveys last week. If anyone is interested in the answers to the religious education survey, I posted them on the bulletin board outside of my office. And before we get to our story, I also wanted to talk to you guys for just a minute about what's happening in RE. This year in religious education, we're studying the UUA's Building Bridges curriculum on world religions. And as I mentioned before, the research shows that with just 2 years of RE classes in our faith, UU kids are already more well-versed than 67% of the adults in their lives. So by the end of this RE year, all the youth at PUC will be able to answer the basic questions that you guys answered in the survey, and so much more. Hopefully they'll be well-grounded in their understanding of faith and practice and what it means in their lives. So at this point in building our children's ministry, I'm in need of lots of hands and minds to help us continue to grow. So family religious education is an important part of creating a multi-generational and multicultural culture here at PUC. So I get that people don't necessarily want to teach RE because they don't want to miss service. But if there's anything that you can do to be helpful, to help lift up the program, I'd greatly appreciate your help in whatever big or small ways you can contribute. We have a ton of holidays coming up, and that's an exciting part of our program. We want these kids to be the kids that kind of understand the difference of why we value different religions and practices and cultures and how to be in those spaces. So it's so much more than we're trying to go into such a deeper level than just performative, like, oh, we painted our faces for Day of the Dead. Like, we really want them to understand the history and things like that. So as we move around the calendar, there's so many things to do. If you want to help hang lights for Diwali, just, come and teach, be a speaker. Thank you for those of you who indicated on your surveys that you would love to be a speaker. I'm excited to reach out to you for that. So I put a volunteer sign-up sheet on the bookshelf outside of my office. So if anybody has an idea and they want to help out, as simple as hanging the lights or stapling papers before church, I will take all your help. So please sign up if you can. And a lot of families come to the faith through the door of RE because they're looking for things for their family, for their kids to do that align with their values. And that's an important piece of kind of growing, being the change that we want to see in the world. So I love that we have the kind of kids who, when we have a lesson about power and how we use our personal power, they have references like, my parents took me to a Black Lives Matter protest. We went to the Women's March. They already know, as young as they already know how to show up. They already, like Crockett came to the powwow and has indigenous history, and I love that he's starting, we're able to have those conversations. So it's really, I just wanted to pick this story because it reminds me of these kids and how sweet they are, and I just want to, take a moment to remind us to invest in what we're doing, because at the end of the day, these are the kids who are going to share our faith in the next generation. Okay, so Change Sinks, and this was donated by Dan and Chelsea. Change Sings, Amanda Gorman and Lauren Long. Who wants to hold? You want to read it, Kevin? Oh, okay. Our guest.
Hello. Hi, I'm Kevin. I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I'm a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mysteries, I sing with all the planet and its hills of histories. I love the rhymes. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strengths and my smarts, take a knee to make a stand. I'm bright as the light each day brings. There is love where my change sings. I show others tolerance, though it may take some courage. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. I talk not only of distance, from where and how we came. I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. Change sings where? There, inside me, because I'm the change I want to see. As it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. I'm the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the wave starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear change strumming. Won't you sing along? The end.
Thank you, guys. Let's sing out our kids.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
And it's time for our centering hymn, Immortal Love.
Here we go. Immortal love forever full, forever flowing free, forever shared, forever whole, and ever ending sea. Our outward lips confess the name, all other names above, but love alone knows whence it came, for apprehendeth love. Blow winds of love away and blow for mist of hate away. Sing out, O truth, undying, and tell how wide and far we stray. The letter fails, the systems fall, and every symbol wanes. The Spirit overseeing all, eternal love remains.
We gather today in worship, carrying many things. We bring joys and sorrows, joys at sunny days and cooler nights, joys of family and friends and time shared together. We also carry sorrow, prayers for those holding grief, prayers for those in our world experiencing hunger, war, and suffering. We enter into this time of sharing joys and sorrows with each other, knowing that we are invited to share our truths, whatever they may be today. Knowing that a sorrow shared is a burden lightened, a joy shared is increased when shared with company. Let us share our joys and sorrows together. Holding these joys and concerns in our hearts, please join me in prayer. God, Spirit of life and love that moves upon us, we come today as people feeling many emotions. Some of us are broken down like a rock battered by the sea, and some of us are standing tall like trees, rooting ourselves into the ground. Sadness is a familiar emotion. For some of us, sadness comes from unknown places, creeping in as the days grow shorter and as the bright summer sunshine leaves us. For others, sadness comes from familiar corners, missing loved ones, loneliness, and change that seems so hard to endure. Sometimes, Holy One, this sadness gets mixed with fear. Fear of the future with new illnesses and changes to our body and mind. Fear of mistakes and of making amends. Fear of our world as we encounter new and old challenges. We ask, Holy One, that you embrace us all in our sadness and uncertainty. Embrace us with love and forgiveness of this community and forgiveness of our friends. Great mystery, we also pause as a community in prayer for the joys in our lives, for the moments in our week that give us hope and show us beauty, for time with family and friends and with this community, walks shared, sweet little treats as Halloween draws closer, celebrations at the coming of fall, at the autumn equinox. And we also pray for those in our community who are doing good work, work that helps the world and moves us towards more justice. Spirit of life and love, settle among us as we pause for a moment of silence and contemplation. We'll take this moment of silence before we enjoy our musical meditation.
My meditation was how good that song was. Thank you. I have a reading for you today from Adrienne Marie Brown. When we are engaged in acts of love, we humans are at our best and most resilient. The love in romance that makes us want to be better people, the love of children that makes us change our whole lives to meet their needs, the love of family that makes us drop everything to take care of them, the love of community that makes us work tirelessly with broken hearts. Perhaps humans' core function is love. Love leads us to observe in a much deeper way than any other emotion. If love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact. If the goal was to increase the love rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through the eyes of love. We would see that there's no such thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea, but everywhere there is complex, ancient, fertile ground full of potential. We would understand that the strength of our movement is in the strength of our relationships, which could only be measured by their depth. Scaling up would mean going deeper, being more vulnerable, and more empathetic.
Thank you, Gary. At the beginning of the pandemic, during the lockdown period, I ordered a box of postcards. They contained 100 postcards with 50 images of female scientists, well-known scientists like Jane Goodall and Katherine Johnson, and less-known scientists like Hertha Ayrton, a British turn-of-the-century suffragette and electrical engineer, and Wang Zhongyi, an 18th century Chinese astronomer. I enjoyed getting to know the famous women on these postcards, broadening my knowledge of science and female heroes. I sent approximately 50 of those postcards in the initial days of the pandemic to friends and family members, each one picked because they reminded me of that person, or I thought they might find this woman interesting. To do this, I had to write to each of my friends and get their addresses. I would then select their card, note down which card they were getting, write the address, write a note, and attach a stamp. Where I lived in Boston, I had a blue USPS box right outside my door. And so as I walked my dog several times per day in those initial pandemic times, I would drop the postcard in the box, sometimes one at a time, sometimes in pairs or multiples. The messages I wrote were probably somewhat generic. I'm thinking about you. I hope you're hanging in there during these wild, wild times. Say hello to Annie or Kevin or your family. Sending hugs and lots of love. Chloe. A postcard isn't a vehicle for a long message. Instead, it was a short reminder that I had thought of them. That was my intention in writing these postcards. I was an extrovert stuck inside in the midst of the pandemic. I wanted connection. I wanted my friends to know that they were on my mind and I missed them, that I cared. A couple of people sent me back postcards, some from Florida and Pennsylvania. Some people sent me a text or a message. Thank you for the postcard. How are you? The start of longer conversations or Zoom calls. Others I got no response from. And to be honest, I wasn't really looking for a response. The moment of connection had been in writing the postcard and the address and then mailing them. The prayer or the good wish I sent off with them. The prayer as I placed them in that blue USPS box by my front door. The writer, activist, and doula, Adrienne Murray Brown, reminds us that when we engage in acts of love, we humans are at our best and most resilient. I didn't struggle much during those early days of the pandemic, perhaps because we were still in response mode and figuring it out mode, and also perhaps because I was sending little acts of love every day to my friends and family. For Brown, intimacy, love, and relationship is necessary for change. It is part of what builds better, stronger movements for change. How do we create relationships of interdependence, relying on self and others in community? And for Brown, she gives us 4 things. Number 1, she says, be seen. Be seen as your true self. Your capacity and your needs are known. Who you are can show up, and what you have to give is apparent. Brown talks about hard times, forcing us to be seen. For example, I can remember being at lunch in downtown Boston in public with my parents and openly crying after a hard breakup. I was seen in that moment in a different light by my parents, perhaps, and definitely by the strangers around us. My parents were able to show me care as I felt those hard emotions. Crying in public, letting myself be seen. There are also other times when being seen is natural or easy, maybe not quite as risky. An old good time friend may bring out the feeling of being fully present. The relationship is so deep and long-lasting, it's easy to be your whole self. Being seen, Brown reminds us, gets easier and gentler the more we're open to it. The more we practice, the easier it gets to be our true selves. Number 2, she says, be wrong. Yes, be wrong. Isn't it hard to be wrong sometimes, to think you know something and to be delightfully or even not delightfully wrong about it? Oprah Winfrey, in her book, What Happened to You with Dr. Bruce Perry, tells the story of a young boy. He's really struggling in the classroom, and in particular, he's struggling with one male teacher. The teacher and the psychologist and even the boy tried really hard to fix this problem. And a solution just didn't seem possible. The teacher eventually got more and more frustrated and decided that the boy just didn't want to behave and that boy just didn't like him. It's that feeling of throwing our hands up in the air and giving up. Eventually, the psychologist observed in a supervised visit with the boy's father that the boy had the same reaction to his father, outbursts and anger. And the father hadn't been a good parent, so it makes sense. But why the teacher too? Why was she getting this why was he getting the same reaction when he had worked so hard to try and connect to that boy? Perhaps they wondered it was gender, but the boy and the psychologist had a good relationship, and the psychologist was also a man. And other physical aspects just didn't line up between the father and the teacher. The psychologist finally figured out that the dad and the teacher wore the same cologne. Right? Old Spice. The teacher, who had thrown his hands up in frustration, assuming that this kid was just bad, changed his cologne and a new relationship blossomed. Believe this? Yeah. It's just the trigger of smell. And once that smell was gone, the teacher and the boy had a good relationship. The teacher had been wrong. Sometimes we will be wrong, and it's hard. It can be painful and even humiliating. I can't imagine being the teacher reflecting on my assumptions about the boy and then being told the truth. The boy wasn't really bad. He didn't hate the teacher. It was just the cologne. Be wrong. Acknowledge it, perhaps apologize, and keep trying to be in relationship with the other. This process of being wrong brings us into relationship. We show our whole flawed selves in relationship. We work in relationship to do better, to be better together. Number 3, Brown says, accept our inner multitudes. We as humans contain multitudes. True, we contain multitudes in terms of carbon and cells and bacteria. Perhaps Brown is borrowing from Walt Whitman here, who writes, "Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes." We are complex human beings who sometimes say and do contradictory things. The choices we make are sometimes not the best for us, but perhaps we make them anyways. For example, I really love the Christian liturgical year. I love its rhythm and its simplicity. I like communion and a good Easter Vigil service. I also don't believe in God, especially the God of the Trinity. We contain multitudes, contradictions. In relationship, we can understand this about each other and even explore it together. Brown says, the more I accept this, the more I share my contradictory truths with those who support me and help me move towards my best self. Those who we share our contradictory truths with can support us and help us move towards our best selves. 4, ask for and receive what you need. This is another hard one. We all have moments when we can use some help. Sometimes that help comes in the form of material things, a meal after the death of a loved one, a small gift when we're feeling down. Other times our needs are deeper. Will you go with me to visit a sick loved one? I'm feeling lonely. Will you spend some time with me? I need company. When we're part of a community, we have to take the risk of reaching out when we need help, and then trusting that we'll receive care. Now, we don't always get what we ask for. Instead, we have to trust that whatever we get is what the person that we asked can manage to give, or what that community can manage to give. Recently, a friend reached out to me. We were in a training together, and the training required reading 2 books plus a bunch of other material. And he said, I've been having trouble with this because of my learning disability. Can we get together and talk about it? Can we study together? And I agreed, and I'll be honest with you, it was a gift. My friend had asked for what he needed, and in the end, it helped both of us. Working together helped me process the material too. I felt more engaged and prepared for the training. It was such a help, a gift, him asking for the care that he needed. All of Brown's 4 parts of interdependence, of cultivating relationship and community, are about vulnerability. Opening ourselves up even when we are hurting, trusting the community of friends or of a church, trusting that it will hold us. Mid-pandemic, I worked at a medium-sized church on the South Shore of Boston. A group at that church saw a need for connection and joining together. And to do that, they formed a little group, and they felted many, many small red hearts for the community. Around Valentine's Day, they mailed the hearts out to members of the church. I arrived one day to find a felted heart on my desk. I can imagine others opening their mailboxes and finding a rather thick, funny envelope from the church in their mailbox, and opening the envelope to find those felted hearts. A small gesture, but one that said, "I see you in all your mistakes and contradictions, and I care for you." Sometimes we have to risk being seen, risk being wrong, or even finding our contradictions, risk asking for help. This is how we continue to be a community of care, a community that cares for one another and grows deep into relationship, even as we're trying to change the world. And that brings me to a little bit of reflection time. So I'm going to give you 2 questions to think about, and I ask that we take a little bit of silence to think about those questions. And they are, when was a time when you felt cared for by this community, or if you're maybe new, by another community? And when was a time when you showed care? So if you want to take, maybe we'll do 2 minutes to think about, when have you received care and when have you shown care? I hope this reflection time gave you a chance to remember times of love and care. And perhaps you can take those times in your mind with you as we go out to that town meeting after service today. And I want to close today with another piece by Adrienne Marie Brown. I really recommend her writing if you haven't had a chance to dive into her books yet. And it's called A Radical Gratitude Spell. And she says it's a spell to cast upon meeting a stranger, a comrade, or a friend, working for social or environmental justice and liberation. You are a miracle walking. I greet you with wonder in a world that seeks to own your joy and imagination. You have chosen to be free every day as a practice. I can never know the struggles you went through to get here, but I know you have swum upstream, and at times it has been lonely. I want you to know I honor the choices you made in solitude, and I honor the work you have done to belong. I honor your commitment to that which is larger than yourself and your journey, to love the particular container of life that is you. You are enough. Your work is enough. You are needed. Your work is sacred. You are here, and I am grateful. Amen.
Well, it's time for the board's favorite part of the service, the offertory. And I thought I would reinvoke a long-standing tradition we've had with the offertory, and I'm going to have some offertory humor, in which I tell a totally untrue story about Chloe. A couple of weeks ago, Minister Chloe noticed a visitor here for the first time. He seemed nervous, he didn't really know what to do. When the service was over, she greeted him in the line for lunch. And he said, "Minister, that was a damn fine sermon." "Oh my," said Chloe, "we don't use that kind of language here at PUC." I'm sorry, the man said. "I'm new here and I wasn't really sure what to do. As a matter of fact, when the collection plate came by, I threw in $100. And Chloe said, "The hell you did." Give generously.
This is called Leaving the Mainland. My wife's mom died last night, so she's leaving the mainland, I guess.
Now it's time for group participation. We'll do our affirmation of gratitude. That's up on the wall. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us also be grateful for our needs, so that we may experience the generosity of others. Now it's time for the closing hymn. For all that in their life.
Here we go. For all that is our life, we sing the thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build a common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its reward, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. And make on the life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, and fear the hours that pass, we come and praise with thanks. For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build a common good and make our own days glad.
This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences, beneath all of our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste, and blessed be. And now our service truly begins.
You can whistle this tune.
Thank you, Michael and Severin.
I have an announcement. I would really, really like an encore presentation because our lunch is 5 to 6 minutes late. So how about that, an encore presentation?
Also, there is the town hall meeting. Do we need to know anything about that? Robin, can you tell us what we're doing? Also, at 1 o'clock, there's a minister steering committee meeting somewhere. We'll figure out where.
Hello? Hello? Hi. So I was going to give directions on the patio a little bit later, but since we have 5 minutes, I'll talk to you about it now. After we get our lunch and we're all settled, I might give a few more directions, but basically we're going to have the town hall for the first time at lunch, and that means that you're gathered at tables, and since, as I said before, I'm an instructor, it's group work. So basically what that means is that there's a clipboard at each table, and you might have a board member at your table, but there aren't that many of us, so you might not have a board member. So if one person could be a leader there, and if you don't have enough people at your table, maybe move to another table so you can have a discussion. But there are directions to follow, and there's pens. And the first activity that we're going to do, kind of in keeping with what Chloe said, about think of a time when you've given care in this community and when you've received care, is our first activity is to write a little note of gratitude to somebody in this congregation. And it might be something they said, or they did, or they led recently or over the past few years as we were in the pandemic. And that's motivated towards our first board goal, which is to cultivate a community of gratitude to each other. And then the next activity, or the next two activities, are to give, are to look at these lists, and there's several lists on each clipboard, of all of the different groups and the committees at this church. And you can look at those lists and see, maybe there's something that you'd like to get involved in at this church. And you might notice, because we've listed a contact person for each of the groups. Or rather, we've done our best to list a contact person for each group. Give us some grace on that. But if you look at that list and you notice that there are a lot of names that get repeated, please, don't be critical of those people, like, oh, no, they're in charge of everything. We are so grateful for the people who stepped up during the pandemic and led all these committees. We really have skeleton crews of these committees operating, and a lot of us, just had to step in and take on a role. And we are so anxious to bring more people and to involve more people. And I know that, when I've joined churches in the past that have been large or even small, the best way to get to know people is to join a committee or some organization or some group on it. And we have a wonderful opportunity because on the patio here, we're in groups after church. We get to know each other by chatting in a way that few fellowships do. But being involved with a group or a committee is really helpful for all of us to be connected and to grow as people. And then the final list is just all the activities that we've been doing at PUC. We definitely covered the past year, I think, between the groups list and the activities list, and then we stretched back to the beginning of the pandemic a little bit with what we've listed. And so if you can go through those, the leader can read through those with some of you. If there's certain ones you want to star that you've really enjoyed, you want to see more of that kind of activity, or if there are other ones that we haven't been doing for a while that maybe you remember from quite a few years ago that you want to bring back, or something new that you want to start, definitely put that down. Now, did I talk long enough? Is lunch ready? Okay. All right. So. Thank you, and I'll just announce briefly on the patio a little bit later. Thanks everybody for contributing.